Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, Nicole. Good to have you on this podcast.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm very pleased and excited to be here. So thank you for the invitation.
You're most welcome. So, I guess before we start with my questions, tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? Where do you live, and so forth.
Yeah, so my name's Nicole Al-Hikmah. I live in Perth in Australia. I was born in Australia. Interestingly, my dad was a refugee from World War II from Romania, Austria, and my mum is of Scottish background. So I grew up in Australia, and now I'm living in Perth. I'm a mum of 3 girls, married to an Egyptian man, and I've had a career of about 30 years in banking, but now I'm working as an executive coach, so a mindset coach for Muslim women professionals and entrepreneurs.
Wow, fantastic. Sounds like you're doing some great work in that space of coaching, and I think there's such a need in that space. So lovely to see that, you've delved into that space. I guess being a convert to Islam, I wanted to ask you, so I might go straight into that kind of question. What initially drew you to Islam? Like, I guess, what is it that you thought, okay, this religion is for me? Because you weren't born into a Muslim family, right?
No. I converted when I was 31, 32 years old. So yeah, quite a way into my life really. And when I look back, it's kind of like, how did I even end up here? Because Islam was definitely nothing that was on my radar. So I grew up in a practicing Christian household, but not a very religious one. So I knew about all of the prophets and all of the things like that. That was familiar to me, but I kind of really didn't really practice as I got older. But when I look at it, Islam has actually been a part of my life without me even realizing it. And it's funny when you look backwards and connect the dots. So when I was about 5 years old, my dad, he was an engineer, and we moved to Christmas Island, which was where there were a lot of people practicing Islam. So the Adhan and Ramadan and what we call Hari Raya there, where we used to get invited to people's houses to celebrate, was a big part of my childhood. But I never really thought of it as being Islam. It was just stuff that was there, and it was how other people, what other people did, and we were invited to be part of it, which I loved. The next time I really remember thinking much about Islam was actually September 11. So I was living in Hong Kong at the time. I was working for a bank in Hong Kong, and I remember that I'd been out for dinner, and I came home and I turned on the TV and saw live what was happening, and that really made me start to think about, what is going on? What is going on in the world? I was working in like an international group in Hong Kong with people from lots of different countries, and I started to ask questions of the Muslims who were in the team, and that was the first time I really was just openly asking questions, because I just wanted to understand. And that was the first time that I learned things like, I remember we're actually in Brunei, and it was Ramadan, and having a conversation with somebody there and learning for the first time that Jesus, peace be upon him, was a prophet. I never knew that. So I started asking a lot of questions. Then I left that job, and I decided that I'd go traveling for a few months. It turned into 2 years. But as I went to each country, I started looking really into the culture and the religion, because I just love to do that kind of stuff. And actually, India was the first time when I was in the north of India, when I was looking, at Hinduism, but also at Islam, and I started to learn more about it. And then from there, I traveled to Iran, Turkey, Syria, Jordan, Egypt. And so all of that time I was learning more and more about Islam, and not necessarily from a reading the Quran perspective, although I did buy my first Quran in Iran. But looking around me and seeing how people practiced. And when I was in those Muslim countries, I could see that there was something in people. There was something that was really in them. And I was like, what is that? Because I want to know more about that. And so that really drew me more and more to Islam.
Yes, when you said what's in them that made you want to learn about Islam, what was it in them that you found that that drew you to exploring more about Islam?
There was an element of, I guess, peace and contentment with life, even though like I'd been living in Hong Kong, which is like, just money, 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 like obsession with money. And I was going through countries where people didn't really have very much. And countries where, some of the countries there had recently been, relatively recently, historically been, revolutions and things happening that you would think would make people really unhappy with their lives, but that wasn't there. And there was also, there was a couple of occasions that I can think of in particular where people actually invited me into their homes just for tea and just to, and I wasn't Muslim at that point, but just, just their contentment, their welcomingness to me, but also things like seeing things like prayer being part of their lives. That when it was time to pray, everybody would go to pray, and that was just built into life. It wasn't like, oh, this is something that we have to tack on, that it's something extra. And then just that inner contentment. And it wasn't people telling me, oh, I'm happy, I love Islam. There was just something within them. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I feel like I need to know more and more about it. And when I asked them, they all brought it back to their religion. And so that just made me want to know more and more. SubhanAllah.
Okay. So wow, that's so interesting because it's about what you're observing and it's not necessarily about, I'm sure you were learning about Islam, but it's not so much about the knowledge, but it's about observing and how people were experiencing or reflecting their faith, and that drew you into the religion. What is there a particular turning point when you said, okay, I want to become Muslim? Because it is a journey. That's one thing I've noticed with Islam, with people. It's never like, you wake up one day and you say, I want to become Muslim. Like you were saying, it's so many things are happening and happen over the years. But was there a point when you thought, okay, now's the time?
Yeah. So when I was traveling, eventually I got to Egypt and I was supposed to continue traveling, but I decided to stop. And when I stopped in Egypt, I didn't actually, even though I was learning about Islam, I didn't actually read the Quran until I was in Egypt. But I started asking questions then. And one of the things that I had learned through my journey as a child, as a Christian, was don't ask questions, just have faith. And that never resonated with me because I've always been one of those, kids who were like, why? Why is this? Why is that? Why is that? But yet when it came to religion, I was told, don't ask any questions. In fact, I was raised in the Uniting Church, and people have what they call confirmation as an adult then. So I was doing it quite early when I was 14, but I actually got kicked out of the class because I was asking too many questions. The minister said to my mum, if Nicole is going to keep asking questions, she needs to leave the class. And so I said, well, if I'm expected to ask questions at school and in everything else, and I'm not here, then I'm out. But when I got to Egypt and I was reading things and reading more, I was asking questions and people were, I'm going to literally say running, because I have a recollection of somebody actually saying wait and running off to ask an imam one of my questions and then coming back with an answer, to which I would literally ask more. And nothing that I asked that people didn't have an answer to. People would always come back with something that actually made sense. It might encourage another question, but it would make sense. And that together with the familiarity, and that's why I brought up my Christian background, because there is, obviously where people of the book, right, it's like everyone, there's a common base for a lot of the things. And it just felt, whereas I never really gelled, there was things that were missing before in my faith. With the questions I was asking and the background that I had, it just kind of came together until it was just like, and it wasn't like a, moment or anything like that. It was just like, wow, this feels real, and it feels like coming home. It feels like coming home. And so I think, it was just, I can't remember any particular moment, but I just do remember that overall feeling of this just feels what it's supposed to be. SubhanAllah.
Wow.
So.
It does sound like you connected with your fitra, and that's where that, coming back to your aligning with who you are internally. It just sounds, when you say coming home, that's very powerful way to describe it. I guess, do you remember where you said your shahadah, like, and what was that like? If you can take us through that experience.
Yeah, I remember that we were out to dinner and with just a group of friends. I was working in a dive shop in Dahab in Sinai, and we'd been out for dinner with a group of people, including some Muslims, and we were coming back. And it's actually, I don't know if you've ever been to Dahab, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place, and it's on the Red Sea, and you've got the mountains in the background, but you're also overlooking the sea over to Saudi Arabia, and you can see the mountains over there. And I kind of remember it as being like about, like, not quite sort of twilight type of thing because the color in the sky. And I just said, I think I want to become Muslim. And then the Muslims who were there were like, okay, say your shahadah now. So they just guided me, and I said my shahadah then, and that was it. So that was it. Later on, when I was in Cairo, we went into Al Azhar and actually formally said my shahadah. But it was that moment, like next to the Red Sea, that I really remember. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm in the place, subhanAllah, I'm in the place of the prophets. Like, people might have, actually been treading on this ground, and I'm looking over to Saudi Arabia, and it was just like, that was just like such a beautiful moment that will always stick with me, subhanAllah.
It certainly sounds like it was a magical moment. And just everything came together, and I'm sure it's etched. I can almost visualize it as you're talking. So it sounds like a very powerful moment and changed your life forever. I guess I want to focus on some aspects of, or challenges that converts go through. Do you, if there was, I guess, becoming Muslim, you're coming into a community, which is beautiful because then you've got this extended family, but there can also be a lot of cultural practices that aren't necessarily Islamic. How did you navigate that aspect of Islam?
Yeah, so I soon after I converted, about a couple of months after I got married, and that was one of the things that I did say to my husband, is that I did not convert to Egyptian. I converted to Islam. And so we do have quite a lot of discussions about that because, mashallah, he's quite knowledgeable Islamically as well. And it comes down to those questions. Sometimes I might have an understanding of something through what I've read or discussions that I've had, and he has a different one. So then trying to filter through that to figure out what's actually Islamic and what's cultural, or is it just different understandings of certain, if you look at the different madhabs, for example, there might be something that's just slightly different. But yeah, I think that one of the hardest things, I think, when converting was, like you said, there is a big family when you're coming into Islam, and I literally, and I don't even know how people knew, I must have, because I started wearing hijabs straight away, alhamdulillah, when I converted, and maybe I just looked really unnatural wearing it, because people used to literally come, I'd be out somewhere and people used to come and give me gifts and say, welcome to Islam, so maybe I just looked really like awkward or something. And so I felt that immediate welcoming, but I also felt that didn't necessarily last. Like, I felt that you were a bit of a novelty at the beginning, but after that you became someone who was different. So those cultural differences is where people are like, well, they're different, and they don't really understand us. And so even though you were with other Muslims, you were kind of like next to them rather than integrated with them, still feeling different. And that was quite difficult, and still can be, because at the same time, the same thing is happening with your old family and friends. Not your old family, they're still your family, but because you have changed, and they think that I remember having a conversation with somebody once, and they said, we don't really know how to treat you, Nicole, because you went away, because remember I went to Hong Kong and then I went traveling and then I came back to Australia Muslim. So they said, you went away and then you came back as a totally different person. And I said, but I didn't. I came back as exactly the same person. It's just that now I'm stronger in my faith, and you see something that's visually different. So I think that on both sides, the culture, as to where you've come from, and people are like, well, who are you now? And then on the side of Muslims, they're like, well, you don't quite fit because you're not, from our country or culture or whatever that might be. So you're kind of like a little bit in no man's land. And sometimes that can be a very lonely place to navigate because you're not sure either. Where do I sit? Who am I now?
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, especially the point, and so a lot of what you're saying, I think, will resonate with converts. That being that novelty at first, everyone's there celebrating, present, and then all of a sudden they all disappear. And as you said, with your family, the challenges that can come up, and maybe your family was more embracing. Sometimes families can be very hostile towards someone when they become Muslim. So I guess you mentioned that is it still ongoing? And if it is, how do you navigate this space? And what would be your advice for someone who's recently converted to Islam?
So I feel like, and I was thinking back on this, that when you convert to Islam, you're very excited and you're so happy about this, but you kind of don't know who it is that you are anymore, because there's a lot of things that you've left behind that, for me, like I said, I was 32 years old. And so I'd spent all of my life up to that point being this particular person. Now there were things that I didn't do anymore. Or I was now leaning more into learning about the Quran and about Islam. So my identity was a little bit uncertain. Who was I and who did I want to be as a Muslim? Like, what did that mean to me? What did that mean to my relationships with my parents, with my siblings, all of those kind of things? So I think that just be gentle on yourself, realize that this is a time of great change, actually, positive change, inshallah, but still great change. And learn about who it is that you want to be. So one of the things that I learned is, back to the conversation I had with my friend, if you come back as a totally different person, is that I'm not actually a totally different person, and I don't want to be. But I want to be a really good Muslim at the same time. But that doesn't mean your character has to change. Yes, you might change the way that you do certain things, but embrace that as well. And it's not that you don't know your identity and you're doing something that you're not sure of. You're just making a change. And one of the things that I figured out as well is that throughout our life, we all make change anyway, regardless of whether we convert to another religion or whether we don't. Like, me at 20 is not going to be the same person as me at 30, and me at 30 or 32 is not going to be the same as a single traveling 32-year-old is not going to be the same person as a 35-year-old who's married and working with 2 kids. You go through an evolution anyway. And so a lot of the time I feel like as converts, we feel like there's something that's changed and we don't know who we are. But I think realizing that you're going to change anyway and just lean into it and embrace it, and be the person that you want to be. I just wanted to touch quickly. I know that just on the parents and things like that as well. It's almost the same there as well. Like I converted at the very beginning of 2003, so not that long after September 11, and so there was a huge hostility to the fact that it was almost like a betrayal and like a cultural and a national betrayal. Why have you done this? As well. But again, it's knowing like who you want to be. Recently, my mum actually said to me, I think that converting to Islam was really, really one of the best things that you ever did for yourself. And that was huge from a person who was basically like, what are you doing? And crying, and this is a betrayal, and why, all of this kind of stuff. So if you're clear on who you want to be, and that I'm going to stick to this. Yes, that you change as you go along. That's natural. But if you stick to it, and if you always have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you led me to this path. I trust that you're leading me right, I will do my bit. I will learn. I will try to show back to the beginning. It was the character of the people that stood out to me so much. So what am I doing for myself to show that character? To show that Islam is something. So take forward what those people gave to me, that gift that ended up with me converting, and try and just, be that person for myself, but also to show others around me.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful and very important. And I particularly like the point you made about how we all do change. Because I was reflecting on myself when I got married. My identity changed to some degree. When
Mm,
I had children, my identity changed. My social circles might have changed. My priorities might have changed. So we actually do go through those kind of changes more than what we realize. But sometimes I'm wondering if it's the shaitan that sticks in our heads, especially for a convert, saying, things would have been different if you weren't Muslim. Whereas,
mm,
things change for everyone, no matter, I'm not saying that there aren't particular challenges for converts, but at the same time, we all go through challenges and saying that this is part of that journey.
mm,
And, if I truly believe in this, as you said, Allah put this in my life for a reason. I just have to walk this. And I love how you mentioned that it's people's character that drew you into Islam. So therefore, your character it becomes important. If your family sees, oh, Nicole is actually a better person, it's brought her closer to us, or she's her character has just incredibly improved. It's a bit hard for them not to notice that, I suppose, isn't it?
mm. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely.
I suppose on this point, before we move on, is there, because you mentioned that it can be sometimes isolating within the community, is there any advice you would give to the Muslim community about how they should approach converts or what they can do better?
Mm. Um,
I'm thinking, where do I start?
yeah, no, it's just I feel like it's just treating everybody like an individual, right? And I feel like converts sometimes go in like one, like they're converts, and it's almost like they're, a different culture or a different something. There's a bow wrapped around us, and we're all like in one thing. Some converts will, you know, straight away convert, and they'll be memorizing Quran, and they'll know fiqh, and they'll know, so they're like incredible, amazing. Some people will take a longer journey. Some people will not, like, they'll start off as a strong Muslim, and then they might like go back a little bit. But then Muslims are the same as well, right? So you've
Yeah,
got, and so we're just the same. We're just the same. We've got the same, challenges. We've got marriages. We've got family. We've got all of that other things. And so I guess even, it says that no Muslim is, no Arab is better than a non-Arab, or no one's better than anybody else. We're all just like really different. And so that's what I think that everyone has to remember. Don't lump people in, oh, they're a convert, and so that means this. Just speak to
mm,
me as Nicole, speak to somebody else as, my daughter Sarah, she's not a convert, but even the children of converts actually have this, oh, they're the children of converts, so there's something a little bit different about them. We're all Muslims. We're all Muslims with our own journey. Even somebody born Muslim might not actually start to practice until they're later on in life.
so true.
Um, so I think that's a really important thing. A really beautiful thing that I found as well has been support from other converts. Like, we have a beautiful group here in Perth, and I hope inshallah that other people have it as well, where we literally get together to have dinners and barbecues, and it's not a particularly religious gathering. It's just a gathering of people who follow the same religion, but we have similar experiences. So we might have all gone through, when we converted, our families got angry with us or completely rejected with us. We might, a lot of us got married to Muslim men, have our experience. We might, have that challenge of the ongoing challenge that converts have of what do we do at Christmas? Because our families invited us over. And so it's really good as well to have that commonality with other people. I don't think exclusively, but I think that having that, like I said, that common understanding to be able to say, this is a tough time of year for me, is a really good thing as well.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good. Treat everyone as an individual and meet them where they are in their journey. That's the
Mm,
message I'm getting, which is really
yeah.
important. So I guess going back to you, how has your relationship with Allah evolved over the years since you converted?
So I think when I first converted, it was very much ritual based. So it was like, okay, I have to now pray and I have to pray in Arabic. So I have to learn how to do all the different moves, like even things like learning, how many rak'ah is each prayer. Like I remember getting it wrong and saying to my husband, inshallah, Allah will forgive me because I only prayed this and I should have prayed that. But, you know, Ramadan was obviously huge. The most I'd done before that was kind of like, I don't know if you remember the 40-hour famine that
I do
people used to.
remember.
That was like my biggest experience of any type of going without food. So I was terrified by the whole idea of Ramadan. So getting into that and, just learning about what does it mean to be a Muslim? What are the things that I am allowed to do? What are the things that I am not allowed to do? It was very structural.
Mm,
Um, and that was good, but to be honest, that didn't really fill my heart. I'm like, I don't think I converted to Islam to be doing things just differently structurally. And I was thinking about this as well, and it's like we have the 5 pillars of Islam, right? And that's because they're holding up the house. But I feel like sometimes for me, there was a focus on the pillars rather than the house.
mm,
So what then brought me closer, I guess, to Islam was starting reading more about the heart of Islam, about learning about how to, the remembrance of Allah through things that aren't necessarily directly through prayer, but how do we look at things outside like the sky and the sea and link that back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When I'm reading through, like I love, as I said, I'm a coach, and so I love reading all of the personal development things, but how does that link back into our own
mm,
beliefs as well, which was really strong for me. So I think that was that evolution definitely of going through, okay, I've got my house ready to be built now. Now I have to build the house. And that is what I think has really made a huge difference in my own heart, into my own understanding of who I am as a Muslim and who I want to be and how I will get closer to Allah. And I'm not saying that those pillars, they're pillars for a reason. They need to be there, right? If you just do the other stuff without the pillars, the house falls down. So they're incredibly important in my life, but it was those
mm,
other things and the building of the house that really I feel has,
mm.
alhamdulillah, brought me closer. And I just want to give a bit of a shout to the ISTRA programs as well, because that has given me a huge opportunity to learn, to throw myself into the learning and to really just increase how I feel closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Alhamdulillah, that's good to hear. I get my final question to you is what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about becoming Muslim or who has recently become Muslim? Like having, I guess you're in this journey, it's been a number of years now or decades.
Mm.
What would you advise someone who's at the beginning of that journey?
I think the best advice that I ever got given was by somebody in Egypt, and they said, this is a huge religion. Don't try and throw yourself straight into everything right now because you'll drown. Like take it slowly, so that you're at your own pace and you can actually learn and retain stuff. So I think that was really great advice. I also think that just ask questions, like, and don't be afraid of that you're going to get it wrong, that you're going to ask the wrong question. Because remember that, again, you're here because Allah guided you here. And so if you want to increase your heart, whatever your way is, mine was asking questions. Maybe for somebody else it's not. Maybe for somebody else it's throwing themselves into the community so that they really feel part of it. But
Mm,
just take small steps, but in the right direction all the time, to say, how do I increase my knowledge? How do I increase my love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Whatever it is, it's going to make you feel like you're actually moving in that right direction, but slowly enough so that you can actually pick things up and you're not just, getting overwhelmed with so many
mm.
things.
Great advice. Great. Thank you, Nicole. That was very informative and it just was lovely to have insight into your world and your journey throughout the years. I will put some information about some of the work you do in the comment section. So please, everyone, have a look there and check it out. Once again, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.